Well, hello friends. Today is a unique video and it's going to be a multi-part video, but this is the beginning to show you the steps to where I need to get. And that is all about revamping and adding a new flower bed and a path in kind of what I call my backyard, but it's really my side yard. And I talked about this in stories this spring. I've mentioned it for a few years now. I am not a garden designer. I am an at-home gardener who loves to play with, dream about, and think about things I want to do in my garden and how they could really work in the future and how they could grow into other spaces. So that's what today is, a culmination of these thoughts, these dreams I've had, and what they're going to be turning into. And so there's a new bed I want to put in all along this evergreen hedge behind me. These are Niagara, I believe, arborvitae, that they'll keep growing, which is what I want. And really what I want to do is have a beautiful perennial bed of eco-friendly plants, pollinating loving plants all behind me, but I'm putting a path in front of them and that will really finish the space. And so the path has been started today and I really want to show you what that process is. So right now you're going to see this geomesh or this landscape underlayment right now underneath the rock that I'm using. And this is what's going to prevent weeds, any of the soil from coming through. It's a really nice, heavy, hefty, thick layer. When I do work like this, I am so lucky to have someone really close by. And so this hardscaping is done by that hardscaping crew that is so good. So they bring my dreams to life. So what I'm doing here is a path. And right now they went about 4 inches deep and removed that sod, which was so wonderful that it gives such a clean cut. And then what they're going to lay is this 4x4 Iowa limestone as border on the pathway, which I'll show you somewhere else. What I already did today this evening, is use the sod cutter and I started removing this sod that I'm going to have for the flower beds behind. So you can see now it just lifts. And I did it at a really low setting. You can choose the depths if you rent a sod cutter. You can go really shallow. I think this is 1/4, maybe even just of an inch. So I'm not removing that much soil, which means it won't be too heavy for me to remove. I like to remove the sod instead of just spraying it or trying to solarize it. I left a border here so they could continue edging, and then I will remove this part by hand. But a sod cutter makes light work, so then I can go in and I can do the finish work by hand around my stone plinths that are holding up the statues and things like that. The path starts close to my front yard, and you can see it's just right behind me. And I know on video it's going to be impossible to see, but you're just going to have to trust me on this. The overall vision is that someday this path will extend really to the front door, and it will give you this immediate entry just to take a walk around the garden. And someday it will continue on to other places in the garden. But I had to choose a starting point. And right now it feels like it begins and ends to nowhere, but someday it really does. I have an overall vision and it really will go to that. But I want to show you what the walkway is going to lay out like. The edging is already put in place right here. We're close to the road, so you're going to hear traffic right now. It is a windy evening. I have trees and shrubs planted that someday it will hedge completely from the road and you won't even see it. So the path will begin and it will be beautiful limestone edging. And what I love about limestone, this is what my front walkway is made out of. I have big flagstone pieces, but limestone ages and it kind of patinas with time, and that's what I love. So inside of it, I'm doing 3/8 inch, I call it 3/8 inch contractor chips. It's a limestone chip. It's not true pea gravel. It's not perfectly smoothed or round or tumbled, but it's washed and cleaned. And so it to me is just a great, kind of more natural all-purpose path. And this is what I've used in other gravel areas of my backyard. So eventually this will be brought up to grade, obviously, of the edging, and you'll be able to walk all along this just beautifully. And I have a whole plan for flower beds here that are going to be a lot of grasses, a lot of native grasses that I'm excited about. I've already gotten this sod cut open too, so all this sod will come out. I just didn't feel like actually taking it out yet. And then what I'm most excited about, a few years ago, I'm someone that loves garden relics. I love architectural pieces that I can use. I have 2 of these millstones from a local mill that I found at an auction, and I've been saving them for the right thing. So this is where the first one is going. And you can see they sunk this in the ground first at the correct depth. They use a laser. They beam it out. They ran string lines to make sure I liked the sight lines. And then this is being set as the corner piece that you'll walk onto, which this is what I'm so excited about, that you can walk on here. And then this is where you are going to turn. So this is making pretty much a 90-degree from there and then over to here, where you will walk off completely, and that's what I'm so excited about. And again, remember, lots of fun perennials, lots of beautiful prairie plants, all around this. That's the entry, that's the beginning to what's going on here. So what we're gonna do today is actually, I'm filming this prior to when this gets done, but once the path is done, we're gonna go and remove all the sod and prepare the bed for planting. That's gonna involve any amendments I put in, any fertilizing. So I thought that's a good process to see how I begin. So we're gonna begin with the sod, we're gonna amend, and we're gonna do it all in this video, and it's the beginning to a good bed. It's been a couple days, and now I'm gonna really get started on the heart of the bed, and really what's gonna go into getting the bed and the soil ready to be planting in. So when we talked here in the beginning, I was showing that the path was going in. Now the path is done. So I really wanna start with where the path is at, what I've done since it has been in, and how I'm gonna get the bed ready, because this is an area that's never been planted. This has always been grass. It's always just kind of been part of the yard, and it's never been something that plants or plant life has been growing in. So one, I do live in Southeast Iowa, which means I have beautiful soil. I have black, rich, nice soil. That doesn't necessarily mean there's always tons of nutrients in it, but it does mean that it's a great medium for growing plants. So let's look at the path, kind of see what it's like now that it's done, because it's near and dear to my heart. I really like it. It's exactly what I envisioned, and the dreams just now keep expounding on where this can go someday. I want to take you just to the beginning of the path. Someday it will keep going, but this is right now where it starts. I've had this marble hitching post for years. It's antique and I've been waiting for the perfect spot. For now, it's a great entry point. So on this path, we are not going to be talking about this bed, which is going to be hosta, or really this bed, which is going to be grasses and just kind of more simple things. What we're going to talk about is the bed that's going to be all along the back. So when you come around the corner, this is the stretch of bed we're going to be working with. It's a little over 50 foot, probably around 55 to 58 foot long. And this is all going to be part of the bed I'm focusing on. So since this has never been planted in, I really want to make sure I'm able to enrich the soil and help it. So I've already started laying some amendments. And what's nice about this is the path now gives a natural delineation and edging to the flower bed. So for me, to be able to have maintenance and things I can handle, I have to make sure that they're going to be somewhat maintenance free as far as grass growing into them is. If you're wondering what I mean by maintenance free, nothing's maintenance free. Let's just first say that. But what I do mean is having this limestone path be the edging to the bed, there is a really good stopping point for the grass that will not get into the bed. So the grass beyond is going to stop at this path and not make it past. There's a nice layer of geomesh or a heavy, heavy lining underneath this path that's going to keep soil and stuff out. But I will perform maintenance on the path periodically to make sure that it doesn't just get a buildup of soil and stuff in it, because it can blow in. Leaves will blow in, debris will blow in, soil itself will blow in. So I do have my leaf blower sitting up here at the back, and every so often I will blow the path off lightly just to make sure anything does not start to decompose and become soil in the path. That's gonna help it in the long run. You can see Kip is helping me today. He's sniffing around, making sure everything's okay. That's my French bulldog. But nothing is maintenance free. It will all take a little bit of work, but having something like this where I don't have to edge it periodically every other year, whatever it is, this means I can have a little bit more of an ease with this bed, and the plants I'm putting into it are going to mimic that too. But let's talk about now how I'm going to amend the soil, enrich it, and make sure it's ready to go. So what I'm doing is using a couple different things. One is just an amendment and one is more of a fertilizer. So right here I have the amendment. You can see I've started laying it out, and that is just the organic Land and Sea gourmet compost, it says. But really what it is just a good, perfect organic compost. Don't let the word Land and Sea scare you or what's going into it scare you. The idea of compost in general is that it's fully decomposed and ready to be put with your soil. Compost on its own is not soil. It's an amendment that's going to only enrich your soil. And what I like about this one is it has a really nice texture. So it really just adds to a nice loamy soil, gives the soil great drainage, great texture, and adds some extra nutrients. And that's what's really important here. You can see how nice and fine it is, and how the reason I'm not using my home compost on this one and this year in general is because I realized my home compost is not ready to go. It still has some things that sprout within it. It hasn't been hot enough for it. So I really can't use that this year. So this is a great option, and it's really gonna help this bed. So I've been laying it out. I've just been opening up the bags and putting them all out. So I'm gonna finish up here with these, and then we can move on to some fertilizing. It doesn't take long to lay it out, but it is gonna be worked into the soil now, and I'll kind of show that. But before I work it in the soil, I wanna add a little bit of fertilizer too. So this is the first time, I'm kind of excited, that I've gone kind of the whole length in starting a new bed. Oftentimes around the rest of my yard in the last 13 years now I've lived here, I've kind of done things at different times just because they don't always work time-wise to do it all at once. So I'll try to start a bed, go back and forth between trying to finish it. I won't ever really start with amendments like I am now or go into fertilizing, because guess what? We don't always have time, do we? We run out of time, life gets busy. But on this bed, I'm gonna kind of do what I think of as best practice, doing everything I can in the beginning to make sure it has healthy soil, good fertilizing, good organic matter to help those plants get started. And to me, it's a really good way to show that if you have the time, if you're able to, doing all these steps just further the life and really help those plants along even more. So now what I'm gonna do is add some fertilizer, really simple to put down. It's just granules. And I'm gonna just like layer it on in a really simple way. But I wanna talk about the reason I'm using this specific one, especially because there's arborvitae lining this whole bed. And so it works both on the arborvitae and just as an all-purpose fertilizer for the plants we're gonna do too. So I'm using Plant Tone, and this is something I use on all my boxwood. I use it on all my arborvitae, and this is actually the first time that I'm using it on a brand new bed before I've planted anything in it. And that's mostly because usually when I start a bed, I will put 1 or 2 plants in, then start taking more grass out and putting a couple more plants in and keep growing it that way. This is the first time I have the whole bed ready to go all at once. What I love about Plant Tone is that it works really well for arborvitae, which is what this big, beautiful row of trees is behind this bed. And it works really well as just an all-purpose plant food for flowers, for shrubs, for anything you really want to do. So what I'm going to do is sprinkle it on, and you can see I just started over here. You can see it right on top, and then I'm going to till it in. So all of this is going to be tilled into like probably just about the top 4-5 inches of the soil with all that compost I added too. So together, I'm just going to make sure I first sprinkle it all over as much as I can. And you can look on the back of the bag for rates and amounts, but honestly, any amount is going to help. After all the tilling is done, I actually walk through and see if I see any pieces of, this is a little piece of sod or grass that I didn't get. This can really reroot really easily. And that's why I took the time to remove all of the sod completely. So I used a sod cutter. Now that makes it a lot quicker, a lot easier. You still have to pick up the sod. But what I find is you can solarize. You could try to spray with an organic spray, but really the best way to keep grass from just continually growing in this bed is to remove as much of it as possible. So I used a sod cutter, cut off a thin layer. I only did a thin layer because I didn't want to take so much soil with it. And then I removed all of it. But now after I till, you will find little pieces, so I remove those. But I also, once I finish tilling, will take a rake and just smooth it out. I just want a smooth, nice bed, so when I start planting, all of this is just ready to go. This is all part of taking the time to get a bed ready. So maybe the front of your house, maybe the backyard, you have a new bed you want to put in. This is a great way to make sure you can start with the right conditions and the right soil health just to get your bed going. And again, you don't always necessarily have to do everything. You don't always have to amend the best way you can or put all the fertilizer in, but each of these components can really help, especially if you feel like your soil is lacking. But even if you feel like you have nice black soil like I do, amending it and enriching it can really make a difference. So now that it's smoothed out, it's really ready to go. The soil is now, to me, at its perfect state to be able to start planting in. So I have tilled down, you know what, about 4 or 5 inches, and you can see right here how nice this soil is gonna be to work with. Now, obviously when I dig each hole, it's gonna go a little deeper, so we'll talk about that in the next video. You may be wondering why I chose to till this when I talk so often about no-till and how in my vegetable garden, I don't till. This is a very different bed I'm doing here than my vegetable raised beds. In my vegetable raised beds, I created the perfect medium of soil. I made my own soil blend with topsoil, compost, and perlite. I have videos on that. I have a post on that on my website. This is an area that's never been planted. It's not raised bed. I'm gonna plant directly, obviously, in the ground because it's a landscaped bed, a flower bed. And so tilling it was really essential since it's been compacted. It's been driven on by mowers or by my gator. Over the years, this actually used to be part of the field, so it was driven on by heavy equipment. So tilling it is just a new way to add in those amendments like I wanted to do and make sure it's a little bit easier to plant in. It also will help drainage a little bit more to have it tilled and just be able to work in easier. So that's why in this case, I think it's really important to remove the sod, till it, add those amendments, add that fertilizer to get it ready to go. So you now see the beginning of a new bed. And this is really, to me, exciting because it's not too often we can see a bed from nothing to something. And that's what this is. This was grass just a few weeks ago. It was grass all the way around each one of these statues. So that has now been removed. This path has been laid. And the reason I went with professionals for the path was, one, I was worried that I was never actually going to get to it. Two, I wanted it to be done really well. I wanted it to be laid in a way that it was going to last for years and years and years, to not have soil coming up in it, to really be put down the way it should be. Because sometimes, I'm going to admit, I get in a hurry and I don't do every step perfectly. And this way, this was the beginning of the hard work. And now I can get into the next hard work of planting everything and having it ready, knowing this is perfect and ready to go. So you've seen, we've amended the soil, we fertilized the soil, we tilled the soil, it's ready to go. Next video is really, to me, exciting because it's when all the plants are gonna be coming in. And I have some really fun plants. I'm pushing my boundaries a little bit, picking a lot of perennials that I don't often pick, but they're ones that are gonna do well in these elements, in full sun, in drought conditions once they're established. They have some good resistance to them. And you're gonna see why I love them, because they're gonna naturalize and just fill in this area. And that's what I want, an easy bed with low maintenance, but a lot of beauty. That's the important part. So until next time, get dirty, get excited, maybe put a bed in. Let's get gardening.